Welcome to Legal 123s with ByrdAdatto. Legal issues simplified through real client stories and real-world experiences. Creating simplicity in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to Legal 123s with ByrdAdatto. I'm your host, ByrdAdatto, with my co-host, Michael Byrd.
As business attorneys for healthcare practices, we meet a lot of interesting people and learn their amazing stories. This season's theme is the future of wellness, where longevity, advanced weight loss solutions, and anti-aging innovations collide. Get ready for insights from the people driving the evolution of the medical industry.
Now, Michael, I'm actually really excited for our in-studio guest today for today's show. But before we bring him on, Michael, I know you're a big fan and you've been to a bunch of K-pop concerts. Do you watch the K-pop videos just to learn any of their dance moves?
Brad, you have tapped into my world now. Audience, I actually had ChatGPT tell me the 20 most popular K-pop bands, and I've been to 1 through 9 of the concerts, plus number 12, 15, and 17. So that means I've been to 12 out of the top 20 K-pop bands concerts. So you asked about the videos.
Yeah, the dance moves.
Yeah. Well, I've seen far more of these videos watching my daughter learn the dance moves than I care to remember. But I have not, despite her trying to get me to learn them, actually partaken. How about you?
Yeah, I've never watched one of those things. But I'm more of a dad dancing kind of guy, which is like kind of mostly chair dancing or kind of like jiggling a little bit here and there. But that actually perfectly brings us to today's opening story, because somewhere in the world, a lawyer decided, you know what my marketing needs? Less professionalism, more club lighting.
This sounds, I'm not sure if this is a bar complaint waiting to happen or your inspiration.
Fair question. So picture this. South Korea, a lawyer, very confident, very out online-ish, decides to come up with this new marketing idea for his legal services by dancing. That's not metaphorical. Yes, dancing, actual dancing in front of a nightclub billboard. And the titles flashed behind it were like Gangnam #1 or King of Socho.
Okay. Well, it's very bold branding, and what I'm really hoping is that you're presenting the story as an extreme complaint and not an idea that you want us to use.
First off, yes, you're correct. Very bold. We'll hold off whether or not it's a good idea yet. But less ABA model rules, more like America's Best Dance Crew maybe rules. And the regulation, although in South Korea we're not as dazzled with his moves, believing that he crossed the professional line doing the electric slide, I guess, on top of that billboard.
Okay. Well, let me guess. He argued that there was no rule that said he couldn't dance?
Yes.
Okay.
But the court basically said you don't need a rule for every bad idea.
That's a pretty good legal principle, one I would advise you to start living by.
Damn it. Well, for his case, he got a 1-month suspension. He appealed. The judge ruled against him, saying that, your credibility kind of moonwalked out the door when you start doing all these K-pop moves.
Well, I'm not sure moonwalking is a K-pop move, but I get it. You have to tap into the 80s.
Yes. All right. For our audience to be clear, this isn't just a South Korean thing. Every state bar has association, has some type of advertising and professionalism. So the geography may change, but the rules don't. And before anyone asks, no, our guest, Ben, today is not a labor lawyer, though he does occasionally play one on TV. So for those wanting to help Ben out the next time he thinks he's going to advertise his labor law skills with some wicked dance moves, don't do that.
Okay.
At a K-pop concert.
All right. Joining us again is our friend Ben Hernandez. He's the founder and CEO of Skytel Group. Skytel is a strategic financial and M&A advisory firm. For a little background for those who have not met Ben, earlier in his career, he worked with an international banking group, with a hedge fund, and financial services and advisory institutions. He went to A&M undergrad, BBA in finance, and we don't hold that against him.
Yes.
And then he has his MBA from the SMU Cox School of Business. We have co-hosted MSS M&A Summit with Skytel for many years, and the next one is coming up on April 8th, where we're also co-hosting. SkyTel is co-hosting with ByrdAdatto and ESCO Law Group. And this is your 5th time on our podcast, Ben.
Wow, thank you for having me. What's the record, by the way?
You may be tied.
Yeah, I think you're tied actually right now with our partner, Jeff Siegel. Now, Ben, we were talking before this podcast about advertising and marketing. SkyTel Group is out there all the time doing a lot of stuff. Is one of the marketing blitzes with you dancing in front of a nightclub billboard, has that been brought up?
We tried that. It didn't go well. We lost a lot of leads, a lot of clients, a lot of team members.
Oh, well, at least you tried.
Yeah.
Yes, you have to give it a shot.
That's right. All right, let's jump in, and we'll just get right into it. So you heard us mention we're talking about wellness this year. So we're focusing on the future of wellness. It's the craze. And when we say wellness, we're really talking about all that implies: longevity, weight loss, anti-aging. And I'm curious, Ben, what signals, tell investors that wellness has moved from a fringe or consumer trend into kind of a serious, durable medical service line?
Yeah, it's interesting, and we haven't talked about this. Our firm this year also is doubling down and hyper-focusing on, we call it precision healthcare, wellness, functional medicine, longevity. And the reason for that is this really started a few years ago, and it's been picking up steam. I think around the time of COVID, generally the worldwide population started prioritizing this. So we've been keeping an eye on it. And currently where we are is, I think there was a report out there by McKinsey. They polled everyone on, do you consider wellness to be a priority or top priority? And 82% responded that yes. And this was amongst other pieces. So when you look at where we are today, I think investors are taking it seriously because this is driven by patients right now. And beyond that, when you look at, okay, what type of patient, it's Gen Z and millennials that are driving this, otherwise the future of the United States. So I think that's extremely exciting. That's number one. And then you start combining it with like employers are moving to high deductible plans. So you have HSA, FSA, and what they're doing is they're using these dollars and they're saying, Dr. Michael, right? Like Dr. Michael, it's no longer enough for me to see you one time a year. You run a lab test. I see you for 5 minutes. I can sense that you're running out the door, not really paying attention to my personal health. And by the way, those biometrics, they're really only showing you when you're out of range. So what they're asking for today is they're asking for longer consult times, that concierge level medicine. They ask the question, how do you hack my health? They are taking these lab tests that are deeper also every quarter a lot of the time. So that's a very interesting point. If they're taking them every quarter, so you're combining longer visit times, telehealth, concierge level medicine. And on their way out, they're asking, are there any nutraceuticals, any supplements on top of this? So this is now, I think, a mainstay. And I think what this is doing, like our current medicine did a very good job of increasing lifespan. And I think this next phase of medicine is going to increase health span. To close that gap, I'm sure we all know people in our lives that maybe lived to 80, but the last 10 years of their lives, not very quality life.
Mm-hmm.
So what this is doing, and I think what folks are concentrating on is I want to make decisions today that are going to help me tomorrow to where it shrinks that gap. So it's here to stay, in our opinion. We're very excited about it. And I guess I'll close this part off by stating that not only are investors looking at it, but we've seen platforms prop up by financial sponsor-backed groups. Some of them actually are groups that are also in medical aesthetics that have a med spa platform. They also have created wellness platforms. So we're starting to see that. It's very exciting times.
So forgive me if I put words in your mouth, but so the last time you were on our podcast and at MSS last year, the weight loss craze was going pretty crazy. And you had mentioned, or your team had mentioned, that one of the problems that we're having was how do you value weight loss by itself? And one of the things y'all had talked about, y'all are almost devaluing weight loss because of the changes of the FDA, the shortages, and all the things that were happening. So with that background in mind, we're talking about weight loss is a small piece of the anti-aging and longevity. So how are they now looking at these new lines, and how are you evaluating them now?
Yeah, good question. So for the wellness platforms, when we started researching, okay, what are these trading for, to start getting a thesis on exactly what you're talking about. We formed a thesis on GLP-1s, for example. Now we need to form a thesis on what does wellness overall look like. And there are two main types that we found. One is that physician practice management led practice or organization, and the other one is direct to consumer. We primarily focus, and so does private equity, on that the first one, the PPM model. And we're actually seeing multiples that are slightly higher, actually, than medical aesthetics overall, which is fascinating. It was fascinating to me because we're in the early innings. But those are trading really healthily. They're very comparable to aesthetics, but they're slightly higher, which is something I didn't initially expect to see. And the direct-to-consumer are even higher than that.
Wow.
So it's actually quite fascinating.
I'm curious, too. Do you think I mean, maybe we don't know because it's so early yet, but do you think that they're on par or even slightly higher because, this is the trend? The patients seem to be looking at this as a long-term play, and that kind of is going to be predictive of stable revenue?
I think so. I think if we go back to the beginning of our discussion, these patients are asking to effectively come in and see you every quarter. And they're asking you to run tests, whether it's testosterone, a lot of in males, like testing for Lyme disease. In females, there's a lot of, and that historically has been underfunded and overlooked. And now you have like the female portion of it, I think, is going to be a big driver. A lot of menopausal type of medicine coming out that's exciting. And so they're coming in every quarter. And anytime you see a model, Michael, to your point, that has that recurring revenue, well, that's a lot different than certain types of, for example, plastic surgery, where you might see a patient once. Here, you might have a patient for X number of years. And by the way, it's driven by Gen Z and millennials. So these patients, if you do a great job, could be around for a long, long time. And I don't think it's anything that they're going to stop doing. It's something that I think we'll do for the rest of our lives. So yes, I think that's a big, big driver of the valuations that we're seeing, is that recurring revenue theme.
And there's been a big shift. I know I started it when we were talking about weight loss, but now that some of these name brands like Eli Lilly and stuff are kind of starting to drop their prices, is that going to impact the valuations too then?
I think so. On the GLP-1 side, maybe. I think it'll do a couple of things. Number one, we still have the same view on medical weight loss than we did what you were referencing, Brad, meaning anything around 8 to 10% or above, we start getting a bit nervous because of that pen stroke risk that you mentioned, whether it's, from a governmental body or litigation, that it could go away at any point in time. Is it on, off the shortage list, and so forth? So we continue to have that view. And then, as you mentioned, the name brands are coming down in price. I think the other thing it could do, and we're actually seeing some consolidating groups in aesthetics doing this, is they're starting to partner with some of these name brands to where you can now get them through the medical aesthetic practice. So I think that might be another avenue too. I don't think it'll be a total loss of revenue, because we have stats that we've run that if you are a practice that offers, in this case, in addition to all your other offerings, medical weight loss, it's actually accretive to the practice. So that's where it becomes a double-edged sword. It's actually a positive. You're going to keep me longer as a patient. I think a lot of these people, they want all of their health care ideally under one roof, because if you know everything about me versus if I have to get all of my health from 8 different entities and bodies, that's very different. Whereas if you know everything about me, you can provide me more personalized health, which is really what the consumers are asking for.
Yeah. And staying on that real quick on weight loss just in general, these name brands are starting to come out with pills versus the shot. Have y'all seen any data as to you think the impact that's going to have an increase in potential patients wanting to go now because they were fear of shots or whatever it is, or the regimen they would have to have done with shots versus regimen with pills? Have you seen any data out there on how that could impact on the valuations?
We haven't seen any data. We assume that it'll be and expect that it'll be accretive because, to your point, it's a lot easier to take a pill than it is a shot that you have to plan for. You have to keep the medicine refrigerated and so forth. So we think it'll be accretive if it's as effective, and it can just be another pill that you take during your day. I don't know that we've seen any data and that any studies have been done on what expected results are going to be, but I imagine it's going to be accretive.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that statement.
Yeah.
So I want to kind of go back into some of these wellness services and the valuations that you're seeing. In any of the data that you're looking at or the reports, have you seen a concern or risk about compliance that either is pressing the valuation, holding it back a little bit, or that is creating risk for the future? Has there been that conversation?
There hasn't yet, but I imagine it's interesting. We were talking about this the other day, and I imagine you'll see in wellness and functional medicine and so forth the same thing that we're seeing in aesthetics, which is at some point as this grows and the microscope gets a little bit closer on you, we are going to see those things. Right now, there hasn't been much concern around it.
Yeah, and to be fair, we're painting with a broad brush right now, even breaking it down to longevity and anti-aging. I mean, we've had specific conversations about exosomes, which is not the same conversation from a compliance perspective as, something that's more well established, FDA approved, et cetera.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Like that's a good question of what exactly is wellness. Is it simply supplements, nutraceuticals? Is it NAD? Is it peptides? Is it medical weight loss? Like, what exactly are you doing within your practice? And then from there, to your point, Michael, maybe some do have different risk profiles.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how the market responds to it. Our perspective when we're talking to clients is that they do, right? Like peptides, even peptides is pretty generic because there's different types of peptides and how are you using the peptides. We had an entire episode just on that where we had to bring in someone smarter than us, surprise, surprise, to talk about that.
Well, and I think, and I want to ask a follow-up question on this, sticking in the wellness platform. For audience members out there, we've talked about aesthetics for so long. Most of the aesthetics that we talk about when it comes to valuations has to do with cash-paying people. Like they'll come in with that. With wellness, have you seen a shift, or at least when some of the potential clients you're talking to who might be touching certain commercial payers with hormone replacement and stuff, and how does that impact their overall valuation if they have a wellness clinic and some of it's cash and some of it's commercial? Do you see a difference in those, the overall valuations?
Typically, we do see a difference in those valuations. I would say if you're comparing two clinics and clinic A is all cash pay, the valuations are typically going to be higher simply because you don't have to deal with everything that comes along with insurance.
Right.
If you have clinic B, very similar, but it's taking insurance, typically valuations will be a little bit suppressed depending on the type of insurance. I would also say that from a clinic perspective, one of the things that we see is culturally the difference between a cash pay specific clinic. We ran into this in Derm, did we not?
Yeah.
When you have a clinic that's cash pay specific versus one that is a hybrid of, very different patient base a lot of the time, very different everything from marketing to how you treat them to how they expect the practice to look. Like, does it look like, carpet and rug and a derm practice, or does it look like aesthetic? Does it smell good? Does it look good? Or are the floors stone and so forth? So I think from a cultural perspective, those are some things that are very difficult to execute upon as well.
So
That's reminding me of is when we had Alan Durkin on. He has a med spa and he has a derm practice and a plastics and he said he had a huge breakthrough with his business when he started running those kind of traditional non-cash businesses like a med spa, and that service level and look and feel ended up making a massive difference in just the performance of those businesses.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think a lot of people don't come to that realization and then don't fully execute on that. So that's great that he did.
Yeah.
So for our audience members that are trying to keep up here, you kind of already mentioned it a little bit, but let's talk about that recurring revenue and lifetime patients that you're kind of mentioning. How do investors kind of evaluate that, especially with wellnesses, as they start going to these clinical sales and potential roll-ups?
Sure, yeah. So I think the way they evaluate it is what percentage of the clinic is recurring revenue. And interestingly, and maybe this is part of the reasoning for the higher valuation, in wellness clinics, we actually see a higher recurring revenue than we do in others. And I think it's a combination of people truly coming in every quarter. And then the other piece is there are a lot of like membership programs in wellness that work very well. And so what we're seeing is the percentages are a bit higher. They can be in the 30 to 40% recurring revenue. So that's extremely valuable. That means that every month when a business owner wakes up, they know that X dollars are going to be in the door. And that's extremely accretive.
So that's good.
That's very good.
Okay, good. Just making sure I'm catching up.
That's right. On top of that, if, if Michael tells me, hey, you should go to my clinic, it's great, I'm going to go. I'm going to be a new patient. So from a marketing spend perspective, if you look at lifetime value divided by marketing dollars spent, the acquisition cost is much lower. And then the stickiness of new patients is much higher, which is exciting. So I think due to that, we're seeing just some tremendous value coming out of that. And it's allowing these clinics are growing 20 to 30% a year. That's average, by the way, which is fantastic.
Wow.
You compare it to like aesthetics, when we have the inverse problem, right? We have more med spas opening up relative to the growth. The space is growing, but there are so many new ones that a lot of the ones that have been in business for a while, they're struggling to gain revenue. Here we're seeing 20, 30% gains. I think partially because we're in the early innings, but also patient demand.
Are you seeing then a shift? So for audience members, not only does he have the M&A side, but you have a consulting side. So are you seeing on the consulting side the traditional aesthetic practice now saying, hey, we want to bring wellness and longevity into our practice. What do we need to do to get there?
We're seeing a lot of questions around that, yes. And I would say that to those, it depends, right? There are some
The
owners.
legal answer.
That's right. There are some owners that have that history to where they already understand wellness. They already know what they're doing. So I think you have to be really careful. Do I really understand the medicine and the science, or am I chasing a fad? You have to be really careful because you have to be confident that you're going to do right by your patients. Because the other thing here is if you do implement it, we see some that, for example, have added NAD or peptides or weight loss. So it's episodic. I think the ones that are very successful have a true treatment plan vision in their mind of this is what I'm offering and this is why I'm offering it. I'm taking care of your 360 health. But we get those questions a lot. And we've seen a lot of what was previously core medical aesthetics. We've seen them add wellness, longevity, functional medicine. Now, I will say the ones that do it well, it works extremely well. Because really what happens, if you think about it, I had someone tell me this, and I thought it was fantastic. If you're a patient, medical aesthetics, they take care of your outside, right? You're like, okay, I look good outside. So that's great. Now, the natural progression was, what about medical weight loss? Okay, now I'm looking good and feeling better. So it's a very natural progression to, if you do offer wellness, okay, well, I want to feel better too on the inside. And so that's a very natural bridge that I think the two do a very, very good job of taking care of external beauty, taking care of internal health. And then there are some, I think this will be the next phase. There are some that also work with the brain. Like, hey, I feel good inside, I look good outside, but I'm still not happy. And so some people are actually bringing that piece into it as well. I think it's a fascinating time right now.
Well, and what I loved about your answer is, and maybe it's because you've been hanging out with lawyers enough, you said don't just bring it in for a commercial purposes, understand the science and, in our words, standard of care aspect to it. So you get an A+ for that answer.
Yeah, I saw something in Michael's hand and it looked threatening, so I had to make sure to say that.
All right. Last question, kind of speed round, but it's a broad question. If you're advising a wellness clinic founder today, what strategic decision should they make now to maximize enterprise value over the next decade?
If I'm opening up a wellness organization and I want to maximize value, I think step one would be, what am I really taking care of? To have that entire, we talked about what patients are asking for. They want to sit down with you. They want to have a longer consult, and they want to be on this journey with you for quite some time. So I would bring in what's the breadth of scope that I feel comfortable with, and I would bring that in. So that's number one. I think number two is, we talked about lab tests a lot. Those are extremely valuable. People are asking to come in every quarter, and they're asking for deeper, more expansive diagnostics. I would add that in, because then what that allows you to do is, we talked about it earlier, test for things like testosterone, Lyme disease, menopause, and so forth. And it allows you to continue to refer out if you need to, but it also, if you're offering these within the clinic, there's always something that you can be working on to optimize your health. I would also focus on women's health. We talked about the fact that women's health has historically been overlooked and underfunded. And I think right now is a very good time to where that's going to flip and change. And I think if you're able to offer that, that would be extremely accretive to an organization as well. And I think I would round it out by having really good membership programs. I'd be very careful with those. Make sure not to discount. This truly should be a membership program to keep folks coming in, keep them on your program, because when they see their health changing, you'll never lose them as a patient. So I think those are some of the things that I would focus on from a clinical perspective.
Amazing. Well, we made it through our 5th time together. Thank you for joining us on the Legal 1-2-3s with ByrdAdatto. We are grateful for you as always and look forward to our time together on stage in Vegas on April 8th. We'll go to break and come back with a quick legal wrap-up.
Thank you so much for having me. Always a pleasure and honor to be here with you guys, and always love to see you. And yes, very excited for MSS and MSS M&A Day. That's going to be a really fun one with everything we have planned. Thank you, guys.
Many business owners use legal counsel as a last resort rather than as a proactive tool that can further their success. Why? For most, it's the fear of unknown legal costs. ByrdAdatto's Access Plus program makes it possible for you to get the ongoing legal assistance you need for one predictable monthly fee. That gives you unlimited phone and email access to the legal team, so you can receive feedback on legal concerns as they arise. Access Plus, a smarter, simpler way to access legal services. Find out more. Visit ByrdAdatto.com today.
Welcome back to Legal 1-2-3s with ByrdAdatto. I'm your host, ByrdAdatto, with my co-host, Michael Byrd. And Michael, as we know, this season, we're concentrating on the future of wellness. We had a great guest, Ben Hernandez, came in and really talked about the impact M&A is having on wellness. But, we only have a few seconds left, but what are some takeaways you have?
I mean, I loved your point about standard of care earlier, and when you were kind of jumping off of Ben's point about, having a purpose behind adding wellness service line in a med spa scenario, and just recognize that this is a completely different discipline, wellness, longevity, anti-aging than skincare or aesthetics. And so just because you have the right licensure doesn't mean you have the right training. And so, there is a real compliance risk with just tacking something on without making sure all ducks in a row are both science and compliance.
Great points. Well, and we'll make sure we get the dates right for everyone. As we were saying in the beginning of this podcast, we are co-hosting. We'll be basically tomorrow We'll be in Vegas at the MedSpa show where we have M&A Summit Day with SkyTel and the Escal Law Group, and that's going to be actually April 9th of 2026. So if you're in Vegas, come find us. We'll have more time to spend with you. But Michael, that's all the time we have. So we will be back, though, next Wednesday when we continue to explore the future of wellness. When we have on Jason Kuntz, who's going to come in and talk about the impact insurance is having on wellness. Thanks again for joining us today. And remember, if you like this episode, please subscribe. Make sure to give us a 5-star rating and share with your friends.
You can also sign up for the ByrdAdatto newsletter by going to our website at ByrdAdatto.com.
ByrdAdatto is providing this podcast as a public service. This podcast is for educational purposes only. This podcast does not constitute legal advice, nor does it establish an attorney-client relationship. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by ByrdAdatto. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. Please consult with an attorney on your legal issues.